What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon and I am still waiting for my Satyr, and today we are talking about The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So I saw the movie first, actually, and I literally cried for the entire movie. Like, I started crying in like the very first scene and I did not stop crying. In fact, it just got even more intense like as the film went on, because this is such an amazing story. It's so important, it is so impactful, and I was actually really scared to read the book because I was afraid that it would give me like even more feels, or that it would make me like think of the movie as lesser, just like any of this kind of stuff. But I'm so glad that I finally got to it, and let me tell you, I'm so glad that Angie Thomas decided to write this book. So The Hate You Give is about a girl named Star Carter, and she grows up in this place called Garden Heights, which is basically the hood. She goes to a white school though, so she has to kind of be two different people. She is Williamson Star and she's Garden Heights Star, and Williamson Star doesn't let anybody ever have any reason to think that she's ghetto. She talks in a very different way, she dresses differently, she acts differently, because she doesn't want anybody to think of her as just like the scary black girl or anything like that. But when she's in Garden Heights, it seems like too much of Williamson Star bleeds over and she doesn't know exactly who she is or what she's trying to be. But one night she's driving down the road with her friend Khalil. He's driving the car, they get pulled over, he gets taken out of the car, and then he gets shot and he dies. And this is so unbelievably intense for Star, because he was a victim of police brutality. He didn't do anything wrong. They did everything right that you were supposed to do. The cop just panicked and shot him. And this story is about Star finding her voice and figuring out how to speak out about it. It's not necessarily about police brutality in general. It's really about Star and how she works things out, the way that she now sees things, the way that she recognizes other things in her life, how she's dealing with this grief and how she's dealing with this trauma. And it is so unbelievably well done, and it is so needed. I feel like everybody needs to read this book because it is so powerful. It is so important. It's about Star figuring out that she can't just let this injustice just go quietly. She has to stand up for Khalil because he's not there to stand up for himself anymore. She was there, she saw what happened. She needs to defend him because people start dismissing him as like, oh, well, he might have been a drug dealer, or oh, well, I heard he had a weapon in the car, so maybe he had it coming. But Star was there. She knows who he is. She knows what kind of person he was. And if nobody's going to stand up for him, she realizes that she needs to. And her finding her courage and her finding her voice, her figuring out what exactly it means when people are telling her how brave that she is when she's standing up, is so impactful, and you really feel it. It's so meaningful in the way that Star learns these things, the way that she figures them out. And I feel like the book just does an amazing job illustrating this, and honestly the movie is probably, in my opinion, like the perfect adaptation of this book. It does change things, it does take things out. Specifically, it takes out like a whole plot line with like a character that they just removed completely, but it still works really well in the movie because everything that they changed was to make sure that the focus never is off of Star and this message that she's learning, and her figuring out how to stand up and how to use her voice as a weapon. One of my favorite things in this book is that they do give the definition of The Hate You Give, which is from a Tupac song, and excuse my swearing here, but it stands for "The hate you give little infants fucks everybody." And there is this amazing scene in both the movie and the book where Star speaks with her father about what she thinks that means and what meaning it has. And I actually have it bookmarked because it's really moving, and it is so important, and I feel like it's something that people need to talk about, that people need to think about. I know that it makes me want to do something. It moves me to do things. It moves me to speak up. It moves me to not let all of this injustice like go quietly, like I said. And that's why this book is so important, because it does move you to action. It makes you want to do something. It makes you feel something. And the author just hit that over the head. She did such an amazing job with it. And I also love that she's highlighting a perspective that you don't see very often. Like a lot of books where it's like, oh yeah, this story is going to be about like a woman of color and it's going to be great and oh so progressive and all of this stuff. Normally it's not, because you're still not really getting a new perspective. But Star's perspective is very different. And like the way that this book is written, it's it's written exactly like how she would talk. So it's using slang, it's using all of this history that her and her family have. It's like leaning on the Black Panthers, leaning on this society and like the way people are in Garden Heights, like with thug life, with gangs, with like drug dealers, all of this kind of stuff. And it's things that I don't think a lot of people write about. I don't think a lot of people read about this sort of subject, and let alone like a YA book that is like so unbelievably popular. It's being read by so many different people. I'm so glad that this story is getting shared around. I'm so glad that this perspective has been highlighted, because it is so unbelievably meaningful, and I can't begin to describe like what it means and how it feels to read this book. So obviously, this book is getting an A+ for me. I highly recommend it. This should just be required reading, honestly. It is kind of heavy. It does deal with themes that would probably be like too much, but I do feel like in a school setting or just in general, this needs to be required reading, because it talks about social issues and it talks about political issues in a way that people of this age, like who are 16, who are in high school, will understand. It talks about it in a way that like is easy and relatable. Like, this is how Star is internalizing things. This is how she's thinking about things. This is how she's observing the world around her. Like, her reactions are so real. It felt like a real story. And I cannot recommend it enough. I cannot say enough good things about this book. Just go read it, go watch the movie, cry for 2 hours. Trust me, you will not regret it. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you can talk books with me every week. That is everything got for you today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.